Welcome to Turkish Series TV. Today we have something special for every fan of Turkish drama who values a complete story with a real ending. 15 fully finished Turkish series that hook you from the very first episode and deliver a satisfying and rewarding conclusion when it is all over. No waiting for renewals and no open finales. Romance, crime, history, action, and comedy are all represented in a list that covers the full range of what Turkish television can do. If you have not subscribed and left a like yet, please do that now. The countdown starts right away. Number 15. High Society. Let me be upfront. High Society is exactly what it looks like. A light romantic comedy built around an identity swap premise, without philosophical ambition or narrative surprise, produced for the specific purpose of delivering pleasant, uncomplicated entertainment in a modest number of episodes. That is not a criticism. It is a description of what the series sets out to do, and it executes that goal with genuine competence and a warmth that makes the viewing experience easy and enjoyable. Engin Öztürk and Hazar Ergüçlü have comfortable, natural chemistry that carries even the less inventive stretches of the script. The premise, adapted from the South Korean drama of the same name, follows a young man from a working family who agrees to swap identities with his wealthy friend for a month and the wealthy heiress who enters his life under equally false pretenses. Neither is who the other believes they are, and the comedy of errors that follows lands far more consistently than these kinds of premises typically do. High Society knows its scale: 26 episodes, one season, a clear beginning, middle, and end. No padding, no extended melodramatic subplots, no unnecessary expansions of the central situation. For viewers who want something relaxing and consistently enjoyable without commitment, this one-season Turkish romantic comedy is a genuinely satisfying option that delivers exactly what it promises. One season and 26 episodes that prove light romantic comedy can be executed with craft and genuine charm when the production is smart about its own limitations. Number 14. Wounded Love. Watching it feels like reading a chapter of history through the eyes of people who lived it without knowing how it would end. Wounded Love has a quality rare in historical drama. It makes the enormous feel intimate. The geopolitical events that surround the Greco-Turkish War of the early 1920s are shown not as abstract forces of history, but as the backdrop against which specific people with names and loves make choices that determine whether they survive. The series centers on Cevdet and Azir, whose intertwined lives become inseparable from the fate of a nation being born on the ruins of an empire. Aras Bulut, İnanımlı, and Bergüzar Korel deliver performances that justify the full investment the series asks of its viewers. The production design is exceptional. The costumes, the locations, and the visual reconstruction of the period are among the most carefully researched in the Turkish historical drama genre. Wounded Love does not simplify the horror of what happened in that era. It asks the viewer to sit with the complexity of a conflict where suffering existed on multiple sides, and that refusal to offer easy moral conclusions is precisely what elevates it above most period dramas. 3 seasons and 76 episodes that work both as entertainment and as a powerful act of historical memory. Wounded Love is one of the most emotionally ambitious Turkish historical dramas ever made, and one of the most complete in its execution. Number 13. Such is Life. There is a shot in the early episodes of Such is Life where the family patriarch looks out at the people gathered around his table, and the camera lingers on that image for a few beats longer than convention would suggest, as though the series itself understands that this kind of moment will not repeat. That awareness of time passing, of the ordinary slipping away before it can be properly held, is the emotional signature of this production, and it runs through every season from beginning to end. Such is Life is a family saga following the Akarsu household across several decades, from the 1970s into the contemporary period, showing how the choices of one generation create the conditions of the next. The series has the patience that almost no other Turkish drama of its era permits itself. It builds its characters slowly, lets its conflicts mature before they detonate, and when the emotional moments arrive, they carry the full weight of everything the viewer has invested in the people experiencing them. The ensemble is outstanding. Halit Ergenç, before Magnificent Century, in one of his finest performances. Nurgül Yeşilkaya, in a role that deserves significantly more recognition than it has received. 3 seasons and 103 episodes that say something true and lasting about how time changes everything except the love and the damage we carry with us. Number 12. Fatih Harbiye. The tension at the heart of this production is deceptively simple. A young woman raised in the traditional Istanbul neighborhood of Fatih falls in love with a quiet and familiar man from her own world. Then Mesut enters her life from Harbiye, the polished, affluent quarter just a few kilometers away that might as well be another country. That distance, measured more in social class than geography, is what Fatih Harbiye is really about. This adaptation of Peyami Safa's classic novel does something rare. It refuses to take sides. The wealthy world is not the villain, and the humble one is not inherently noble. Neriman is not a passive victim of circumstance, but a woman who genuinely does not know what she wants, and that indecision, frustrating as it can be, is what makes her human. Kadir Dogulu builds Masit with an understated elegance that is genuinely difficult to resist, and Nesrin Kavazadeh carries Neriman with a subtlety that the role absolutely requires. The pacing is deliberate, slower than most Turkish dramas, and viewers expecting high-octane twists will likely find it restrained. But for those who appreciate character-driven storytelling and a portrait of Istanbul that uses its neighborhoods as emotional metaphors, Fatih Harbiye delivers with quiet authority across 2 complete seasons. It is the kind of series that stays with you not because of what happens, but because of what the characters feel about what happens. Number 11. Noor. When this series traveled to the Arab world under the title Noor, nobody in Turkey had quite calculated what would happen next. The finale of the Arabic broadcast was watched by 85 million people across the region alone, a viewership figure that stands as one of the largest in the history of Middle Eastern television, and that launched an era of Turkish drama as a global export that is still ongoing today. Noor tells the story of Gumas, a modest young woman who marries into a wealthy family, whose members are initially unwilling to accept her, and whose quiet, persistent dignity gradually transforms her position in a world that was designed to exclude her. Kıvanç Tatlıtuğ as Mehmet established the template for the Turkish romantic male lead that would define the genre's international image for years afterward. With this role, he became the first Turkish actor to achieve mass idolhood in the Arab world. The series has the melodramatic hallmarks of its era, which some contemporary viewers will find dated. But the emotional engine driving it, a woman who refuses to lose herself to the demands of a world that neither wanted nor understood her, remains as legible and as affecting as it was when the series first aired. 2 seasons that changed the course of Turkish television history and launched a global phenomenon. Noor is not just a series. It is a historical event in the story of Turkish drama's relationship with the world, and watching it with that context makes it essential. Number 10. The Lizard. What makes the protagonist of this series unusual is not that he is the most skilled undercover agent in the Turkish drama catalog, or that his moral code is the clearest. What distinguishes Tahir is that the Lizard builds a man who has lived inside a false identity for so long that he has genuinely lost the ability to locate the person he was before he became the character he plays. That crisis, of a self so thoroughly constructed that the real one has become inaccessible, is the psychological engine of a thriller that goes to considerably more complex places than the genre typically attempts. The Lizard tells the story of a deep-cover agent whose operational life and emotional interior have become indistinguishable in ways he can no longer easily separate or explain, even to himself. Murat Yildirim builds Tahir with a controlled intensity that allows the moments of genuine vulnerability to hit with disproportionate force. The writing has the discipline to show rather than explain, allowing the viewer to feel the protagonist's disorientation rather than merely understand it intellectually. The action, when it comes, serves the story rather than replacing it, and the technical execution of the operational sequences is solid. The Lizard may surprise viewers who approach it expecting standard Turkish crime drama because it is working at a level of psychological complexity that the genre rarely attempts. Number 9. Filinta. What was daily life in Istanbul like in the final decades of the 19th century? When the Ottoman Empire was still a major power, but the pressures that would eventually break it could already be felt in every institution and every street? Filinta approaches that question through the figure of a police inspector working in a city defined by the clash between modernity and tradition, between the ambitions of European powers and the will of a declining empire trying to find its footing. What distinguishes the series from comparable historical productions is its use of the crime procedural format as a vehicle for historical exploration rather than as an end in itself. Filinta solves cases, but each case is embedded in the political and social conditions of the era in ways that make the history feel alive and directly relevant to the crimes being investigated. Murat Yildirim, as Filinta Mustafa, constructs a detective of rigid personal ethics who finds himself constantly in conflict with a world that runs on compromise, and that tension between his code and his reality sustains the dramatic interest across 2 complete seasons. The production design reflects TRT's commitment to historical accuracy, with period locations that add genuine texture. Valinta never quite achieved the international reach of the largest Turkish historical productions, but it represents one of the genre's most intelligent uses of the crime drama format as a window onto history. Number 8. North-South. What nobody expects from a story about two brothers in love with the same woman is for the most interesting element of the drama to be not the romantic triangle, but the relationship between the brothers themselves. North-South takes that deceptively simple premise and uses it to build an extended, honest examination of guilt, debt, and what happens when fraternal love and romantic desire collide in ways that neither party has the emotional vocabulary to process. Kuzi and Guni are as different as their names suggest. One impulsive and magnetic, the other calculated and disciplined. Kıvanç Tatlıtuğ and Buğra Gülsoy inhabit that dynamic with a naturalism that makes their scenes of conflict feel like genuine emotional damage rather than theatrical performance, because the audience believes these are brothers who know exactly how to hurt each other. North-South has the honesty to avoid easy resolution. Its characters make bad decisions, understand them as such, make them again, and the accumulated weight of all those choices is what gives the story its heft. Oyku Karayel as Simre provides the complexity that keeps the character from functioning as a simple object of desire, grounding her in her own perspective and her own contradictions. 80 episodes across 2 seasons that stand as some of the most emotionally authentic storytelling the Turkish drama genre has produced in any era. North-South is one of the finest explorations of fraternal rivalry and damaged love in the Turkish catalog, operating at a level of psychological honesty rarely seen. Number 7. Karadağ. Picture Istanbul in the 1970s. Streets electrified with political tension, neighborhoods where informal law overrides the official kind, and a young man trying to live by a personal code in a world that has no use for it. Karadağ begins with that image and builds from it one of the most epic and emotionally rich stories the Turkish drama genre has ever assembled. Mahir returns from military service to find that the woman he loves is promised to another man, and that his family holds secrets that will rewrite everything he believes about his own history. What sets Karadağ apart from other period dramas is its refusal to reduce its world to a simple moral equation. The series is not about heroes and villains. It is about the codes that people construct to stay sane when institutions fail them, and the price of remaining loyal to yourself in an era of widespread corruption. Mehmet Akif Alakort carries the protagonist with a density of feeling that few actors could sustain across 79 episodes. Songül Odin as Faraday provides the perfect counterpart, a woman of equal dignity and complexity, equally trapped by circumstances and equally unwilling to lose herself to them. The period reconstruction of Istanbul is impeccable in its visual and atmospheric detail. 3 seasons that build towards something genuinely large and genuinely unforgettable. Karadağ combines period, drama, romance, and social critique in a way that very few Turkish productions have ever achieved before or since. Number 6. Brave and Beautiful. What nobody expects from a Turkish revenge romance is for the primary antagonist to be the most layered and compelling character in the whole thing. In Brave and Beautiful, Tashin Korladag should be a straightforward villain. He is the man who destroyed the protagonist's family. But the writing gives him history, logic, and even a kind of wounded dignity that makes it genuinely complicated to feel about him what the plot seems to want you to feel. The central story follows Caesar, a man who arrives in a small coastal town with a carefully constructed plan to take revenge on the family responsible for his father's fate, and whose scheme is immediately complicated by falling in love with Tahsin's daughter, Suhan. Kıvanç Tatlıtuğ and Tuğba Büyüküstün bring strong screen presence to the lead roles, and the tension between them holds across almost the entire run. The rural coastal scenery is stunning and used with purpose, giving Brave and Beautiful a visual palette that most urban Turkish dramas cannot match. The pacing becomes somewhat forced in the final stretch of the second season, and a few plot turns require the viewer to extend some goodwill. But the core conflict, built on a protagonist who must choose between his plan and the person he loves, stays emotionally compelling throughout all 38 episodes. Brave and Beautiful is one of those series that starts with familiar ingredients and ends up delivering something more satisfying than the premise initially promises. Number 5. Forbidden Love. I did not expect Forbidden Love to stay in my mind for days after finishing it. It operates on a different register from most Turkish drama, more literary, more psychologically precise, more willing to inhabit morally uncomfortable territory without offering the viewer a safe distance from which to judge. Based on Halit Ziya Usaklagil's novel, the story follows Bihter, a woman who enters a marriage of convenience with a wealthy older man and finds herself drawn into an affair with his nephew Behilu. with consequences that spiral beyond anything she could have anticipated. Baron Sot builds Bitter as someone who is not a victim, not a villain, and not a saint. She is human in the most complete and uncomforting sense. That refusal to simplify her is the series' greatest achievement, and it is also the reason Forbidden Love hit its audience so hard when it aired. Kiving Tatlatug as Behlul has the more complex structural role, a man who does not understand what he wants until it is gone. And that ambiguity sustains the drama across 79 episodes without ever feeling manufactured. Forbidden Love lacks the kinetic twists of other dramas in the Turkish catalog. It replaces them with something rarer and more valuable. Characters who genuinely haunt you. 3 seasons that represent some of the finest dramatic writing Turkish television has ever produced. Forbidden Love is one of the essential texts of Turkish drama, a production that belongs on any serious list of the genre's finest achievements. Number 4. Magnificent Century. What no one anticipated when this production premiered in 2011 was that a series set in the Ottoman harem of Suleiman the Magnificent would become one of the most watched Turkish dramas in the entire history of the medium. A global export reaching over 150 countries, Magnificent Century took the real history of the longest reign in the Ottoman Empire's 600-year span and built from it a drama of political and personal complexity that no one expected from what early coverage described as a palace costume serial. Halit Ergenç as Suleiman creates an indelible portrait, simultaneously an undefeated military conqueror, a genuine intellectual, and a man of entirely recognizable human failings in his private life. Meryem Uzerli as Hürrem in the early seasons delivers a performance that reset what Turkish drama could ask of its lead actresses in terms of range and emotional complexity. The costuming, the recreation of Topkapi Palace, and the composition by Fahir Atakoglu are collectively among the finest technical achievements in the genre's history. Magnificent Century has its moments of calculated melodrama and embraces them knowingly. But the ambition and execution are so consistently high across 4 seasons and 139 episodes that its place as the foundational text of Turkish drama's international era is beyond serious debate. Magnificent Century changed the trajectory of Turkish television forever and remains, over a decade later, the essential starting point for anyone entering the genre. Number 3. Endless Love. Let me be direct. Endless Love has its share of operatic melodrama, the kind of plot turns that read as impossible on paper and yet, when the right actors commit to them, pull you in completely. Burak Özçivit and Neslihan Atagul commit absolutely. Kemal and Nihan became one of the most beloved couples in the entire history of Turkish drama, with audiences in over 110 countries and an International Emmy Award that no Turkish series had ever won before. The story follows an impossible love between a working-class young man and the daughter of a wealthy Istanbul family, separated by circumstance and reunited 5 years later under the worst possible conditions. What separates Endless Love from comparable romances is not the complexity of its plot, but the conviction with which the two leads inhabit every scene. Every silence, every avoided glance, every conversation that says one thing and means another carries an emotional charge that few series in any language manage to maintain this consistently. Director Halal Saral keeps the visual language precise and cinematic throughout. The score by Alp Yener reinforces each emotional beat without overshadowing the performances. 2 seasons, 74 episodes, and a finale that left millions of viewers around the world devastated. The most internationally successful Turkish drama of all time did not get there by accident. Endless Love defines an era of Turkish drama and remains the single most essential entry point for viewers new to the genre. Number 2. Ezel. What nobody expects from a revenge thriller is for it to become one of the most complete meditations on loyalty, betrayal, and the cost of vengeance in the history of Turkish television. Ezel takes the structural framework of The Count of Monte Cristo and reconstructs it with a narrative intelligence that keeps it startlingly fresh across 71 episodes. Ömer Ukar is betrayed by his closest friends and the woman he loved, sent to prison for a crime he did not commit, and left for dead. Years later, he resurfaces under the name Ezel, a high-end gambler with a meticulous plan to understand why those he trusted destroyed him and to make them account for it. Kenan İmirzalıoğlu in the title role is the primary reason the series works as well as it does. His portrayal of a man whose coldness is constructed over deep emotional devastation gives the story its human anchor. Without that performance, the revenge machinery of the plot would feel mechanical. Cansu Deer as Asan builds a character with her own logic and her own contradictions, preventing the series from ever reducing her to a simple symbol of treachery. The pacing is occasionally demanding in the second season, and some viewers may find certain stretches repetitive. But the moral question at the center never loses its grip. Is there a version of revenge that does not consume the person seeking it? Number 1. The Pit. Watching it feels like stepping into a neighborhood that breathes and pulses with its own unwritten law. The Pit creates an atmosphere that almost no other Turkish series has sustained with this level of consistency. A corner of Istanbul governed by the Kokovali family under a single sacred rule: no drugs allowed in their territory. When external forces begin destabilizing that fragile order, the family's youngest son, Yamek, must return to a world he spent years trying to escape. From the very first episode, the series establishes that this is not a story about clear moral lines. The Kokovalis are a criminal family, and the script never lets the viewer forget that, while simultaneously building them with enough humanity that their losses carry real weight. Aras Bulut Inimli is the backbone of the entire production. His performance carries Yamak through an evolution from sheltered outsider to reluctant patriarch that ranks among the most complete character arcs in Turkish drama. The music of The Pit deserves particular mention. Its fusion of dark rap, neighborhood melodies, and original compositions functions as an additional character, defining the series' emotional register in ways that dialogue alone cannot. 4 seasons and 131 episodes that demonstrate Turkish crime drama can carry philosophical depth, aesthetic identity, and genuine heart simultaneously. The Pit is one of the most original and accomplished Turkish dramas of the last decade, and one of the genre's defining works. That closes our top 15 addictive completed Turkish series. If any were new to you before this video, I hope the ranking gave you a solid reason to start watching very soon. If you already knew every title, let me know in the comments which position you would change and what you would put there instead, and why. Every perspective adds something to the conversation here. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video on Turkish Series TV.